Hello, and welcome to another episode of The End of the Search. This one I call it, Psychology Does Not Apply Here. Now, this have to do with a question somebody asked me in the Spanish channel. But just to clarify, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with psychology. I'm just simply pointing that psychology per se does not apply to the content of these videos, and you'll see why. So the question says, Nick, first of all, thank you very much. While listening, my mind relaxed. Now my question is, what happens when a person was mistreated from childhood and that caused very deep traumas? What do we do with a traumatized mind and it's difficult to concentrate because it's cluttered with negative thoughts and it is hard to focus on the present? It's like saying a sick mind. It's worrying. Okay. First of all, it's very simple. It's very simple, and yet I can understand how difficult it may seem. As long as there's a strong identification with this seeming I that I claim to be, well, there's also going to be identification with all the things that this I seems to want, and everything you can possibly imagine, expectations, ideas, and so on. So when the recognition that I am, which is the peace that surpasses all understanding, which is the desire for truth, arises in us, we don't have to deal with past thoughts or traumatized minds or anything like that. Because if you think about it right now, all that there is what is. And every thought, memory, or whatever is simply a story, is a construct of the mind that is used to keep holding on to this false sense of identity. Once again, when we're trying to fix the character, is where all these seeming issues come into play. But when the desire for truth is established, then all these issues, they solve themselves, because they only pertain to the character, not to what I am. And once again, when I'm trying to fix the individual, I will open a can of worms of possibilities, because the mind is constantly fabricating stories. It's a magnificent storyteller. It's a fantasy creator. So if I feel in a particular way, the mind is going to conjure up an idea as to why do I feel that way. You see, all pertaining to the character. And then it'll come up with when I was a child, when my mother, my father, and it'll come up with all kinds of stories. And that's why people try to change constantly beliefs. But we're not trying to change beliefs here. We're simply pointing to the cause, to the root cause. Right now, if you don't identify with the content of the mind, meaning if you don't believe any thoughts, whatever the case may be, because you simply want to recognize the fact that you are. Again, this is not about you trying to fix the character, because then, again, this is where we're just going to end up, once again, a can of worms that is going to keep opening another can of worms within the can of worms, and the loop is endless. You see? Because once again, the mind will fabricate another story, and it's always trying to fix something. But if right now there's a desire for peace, real peace, then all that is asked is, what happens if you don't believe the content of the mind? If you don't believe the thoughts, what happens? What happens is that you experience what remains. You see? And the thing is that because we have such a strong belief system about who we think we are, it seems to take a while to make that transition, because on one end, there's a desire for what I am, which is what we are, which is what it is, and simultaneously there's still the residue of the things that I think I want, and expectations and ideas, and so, you see? Because the mind sells you that if you surrender completely to truth, that's a boring life, you're not going to get to do anything, and you're going to be living in a cave or whatever, and that is not true. That is far from truth. When there's a peace, when there's a recognition that I am, when I rest in this peace where these videos are pointing to, it's not that you stop doing is that you live in a place where you see how doing happens. And if in the doing you're supposed to do A, B, or C, you will continue doing A, B, or C. The difference is that you will do it with a different mentality. That's all. We're not trying to fix the individual because we're not feeding the storyline, meaning the past thoughts or the thoughts that seems to be about a past. When that is no longer fed, then all that there is what is. And life unfolds, and you experience the peace that surpasses all understanding. But once again, if I'm trying to use this information to change the character, to change the individual, I want to keep lost in the loop because I will keep feeding this false sense of identity. I remember many years ago when I was in a relationship and I was introduced to some of this information, but I was trying to use the information to try to change my mind so that I could stay in the relationship. You see? And it was very frustrating because life has another plan. So as much as I wanted to be there or thought I wanted to be there according to the mind's ideas and beliefs and fantasies, life had another plan. So it doesn't matter if I would have done the right thing, and no matter how many psychologists I would have seen, life is saying you're going to the left. And even if you think you're going to the right, you're going to the left. So when the surrender started happening truly, where all the things began to drop away, I can see how life is unfolding perfectly, and I don't have any expectations on life. I don't have any ideas of how life should be. Fantasies do come up, but they can be seen, and because they're no longer paid attention to, then it's easy to rest in what is. So when you're resting in what is, because now this idea of even the thoughts that suggest there's something wrong with me or whatever, when all of that is dropped, naturally drops, you find out that the behavior that used to drive this character drops away on its own. You see? I'm not saying, by the way, just for the record, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with seeing a therapist or a psychologist if that was the case, but what I'm pointing to is that if seeing a therapist or a psychologist happens in your script, it's just what happens, you see. Because again, in the world of appearances, it seems that there's some steps, some help that can help, you see. But once again, once you come to this kind of information, then all the steps are seen as just thoughts, ideas that are coming up right now in the present moment, but you're resting in what you are, you see. So the issue with that question is that somehow what is underneath the question is, how can I fix me? How can I heal myself? You know, how can I fix this seeming character? You see, but what we're pointing to here is that there's no such thing as that character. You see, this is why this message is not very welcome, because generally speaking, what people want is self-improvement. This is not about self-improvement. This is a complete collapse of the seeming I. See, from the seeming sense of identity. You see? So, the only thing that I can offer, and which is the only way that life is living me, and you know, again, if you were drawn to this information, see if maybe something that is being shared can serve you. You see, these are just simply an opportunity to look at what might have been overlooked. And first of all is, what is it you truly want? You see, if you still want to fix your person or the character, these videos are not for you. But if you want the peace that surpasses all understanding, the happiness that is ever present, never changing, no matter what happens, and let's not confuse happiness with pleasure. I'm not saying you're going to be laughing the whole time, even in the midst of a painful experience. No. Painful experience and pleasurable experience will happen in the present moment, but because there's not the judgment, you see, there's not the thought evaluating it, they simply can be seen as passing clouds. Okay, so once again, if you want to fix the character, if that's what you're looking for, which is what psychology is for, once again, these videos are not for you. But if you want, again, the peace that surpasses all understanding, I'll say it again, the eternal happiness that is never changing because it's the nature of what you are, then the only suggestion here is to go back to silence. Go back to that space, complete surrender to what is. Everything is accepted, everything is welcome because love is unconditional and you are love, therefore you judge not whatever happens. You see it as a happening. From that pace, notice how life moves you, see? And consequently, all of these issues and traumatized and dramas and all this stuff that the mind was conjuring up where before we used to judge them, and because of that we find ourselves experiencing the fear and the feelings and sensation, and we're trying to run away from them and everything. No, this time we're totally open to what is. And in the openness to what is, you notice that many of those seeming dramas or seeming traumatized, whatever, they may fall by the wayside. They just drop on their own, and you're really going, man, this is interesting because I used to behave in a particular way, and some of that behavior I've dropped. Well, I've dropped because, again, there's no identification with this seeming I that now wants things from this world, wants to change things from this world. Is attached to anything, you see, like the thing with the relationship. When I had that relationship, the real issue is that there was an attachment, there was an idea of what I wanted. When all of that dropped away, then I didn't have to deal with traumatized issues on when I was a child so that I could keep the relationship. It was just basically that life was saying, you are going in a direction that I say, not the direction that you think you should go. So when all of that is dropped, then if life presents me a relationship, that is just a happening, you see, but it's not something that I'm chasing, that I'm looking, that I'm trying to get or whatever. If it so happens that life presents me a relationship, then I trust that this is an opportunity to look if there's any attachments or things underneath. It's no longer about trying to get the relationship. I wrote a book that is called What Love Maybe Is Not. It's dualistic, but it's beginning to opening up and cracking a lot of these ideas we have about relationships, you know, that many people seems to suffer so much about because, again, ideas, concepts, beliefs, and people buy them, and of course, consequently, they experience the pain of that. But anyhow, aside from that, let's go back to what we're pointing to here. When peace is the most important thing in the world, now you can rest in the beingness and from that point observe how life takes care of the details. But if you don't want peace, then of course you will ask questions like this and you will find yourself dealing with everything the mind is trying to sell you. Because once again, it's not that we're dealing with childhood dramas or something like that. It's because we're believing that we're this separate entity, and when we feel that we're separate from everything, we feel isolated. Then what happens when all the pleasure the world has to offer no longer fulfilled us? You see? So what we're doing here is not saying that there's anything wrong with you pursuing something you like or doing things you enjoy or whatever, or living life to the fullest. It's not about that. What these videos are about is about remembering who you are. Now the question is if that's what you really want. And remember, it's not you who decide if you want this. If life wants you to want this, life will take care of the details about it. Life will inspire you to just be more present. If life doesn't want you to want this, then it doesn't matter if you listen to this information. In the end, you're still going to do whatever life wants you to do. And again, I reiterate this over and over again. If life have you listening to information like this, whether it comes from this instrument or somebody else, it doesn't matter. But if life is pointing you in that direction already, you can celebrate because you can see that now truth is what's beginning to become the most important thing for you. And yes, maybe the pain and the suffering led you to this. It's not a rule of thumb. You don't have to go through pain and suffering to really want the peace that surpasses all understanding. It just so happens that for the most part it's like that because we're too distracted with the world of appearances, And the yearning for truth, the yearning for peace, the yearning for knowing who I am is present in everyone. So right now, if life has you listening to this information, then it could be said that all these obstacles are beginning to fade away. And yes, that question happened to be one of the questions that arise, so this information can be transmitted, that's all. So now you rest in that space and you trust. This is the key. You trust. And your reference is always going to be the peace that you experience now. So when the mind is going crazy or so, I can understand that it wants to do something, but you go again and remember, okay, the mind is going crazy, I don't know anything, I just want this, I just want this, and you rest in this, you see? And that is going to be the compass that is going to show you that you're on the right path. And even when the mind says, but if you don't take action, look what's going to happen, and you go back again and says, you know what, I don't care what's going to happen, all I know is that I want this peace, and that's all there is to it. And you trust. So I'm going to close this video with an analogy that I used to use many years ago in my talks, and it's like this. Imagine that you are in New York City, and you know New York City is very, it's very loud, and there's a lot of movement, and there's a lot of heavy energy there. Heavy means, it's a lot of movement, that's it. It's not negative or positive. I'm just basically pointing that. And then you find yourself that you tried everything. You went to all the Broadway shows. You even tried all the, the interesting things, put it this way, that you can derive pleasure from. And you had all the experiences, and finally you find yourself that you cannot do this anymore. You don't know what to do. You don't know where to go. And the mind keeps telling you, try to this new play, or the new show, the new move, the new thing. Or it might tell you, let's fix something that happens in your past. Let's try to fix something, because it's trying to keep you in New York. And there's a part of you that says, I can't do this anymore. What do I do? Where do I go? And if you ask anybody in New York, they're going to keep telling you how to try to function in New York. So, it doesn't matter which way you go, you're going to be lost. Finally, something within you that is wanting that peace is looking for a place where I can rest. And it goes to Central Park. And it goes to a place very quiet, away from all the noise. And you hear that voice. That voice that has been talking to you the whole time. And this voice says, go to the tunnel and keep walking. Now, you got to remember that, for the sake of this analogy, nobody wants to go through the tunnel, because they've heard that if you go through the tunnel, you're going to die, something horrible is going to happen. So there's some kind of a belief about the tunnel, so nobody wants to go to the tunnel. But what you notice, however, is that you know how you feel when you are in the middle of the buzz of the city, and you know how you feel when you hear that voice, you see? And at that point, something inside of you says, you know what, I'm so tired of this noise and this big city thing, that I don't know what is meant by going through that tunnel, but I do feel a great sense of peace by listening to that voice. So you know what? I'm just going to walk through the tunnel. You see? And as you're walking through the tunnel, everybody keeps telling you, don't go through there, are you crazy? What's going to happen with you? But because you already heard the noise already, you don't want the noise anymore. You said, I don't care if I'd rather go through the tunnel and just listen to this peaceful voice, even if I'm taking my chance on that one, than just staying in this big city, whatever. That's why the book that I wrote, You're Not Crazy, Just Healing, is pointing to that. Is pointing to the fact that just because you seem to be the different one, because you're not falling into the pattern of the world, does not mean you're going crazy. It implies that you're actually healing, while everyone remains crazy in this seeming crazy world. That's what I believe was Krishnamurti. If it wasn't him, I don't know, but I'll give him the credit. He used to say, those who are healing are considered rare, strange, but those who have healed are considered crazy, because they don't fit them all. So anyhow, so finally you walk through the tunnel. And at the beginning it's fearful, because you have all these ideas of what the tunnel is about, and everybody tells you about the tunnel. So, but you said, you know what, I don't care. I've never done this, but this voice that I feel that is quiet in me, and it brings me peace, so I'm just going to follow that voice. So when you begin walking through the tunnel, you notice that you only see darkness. And you're walking into the darkness. When you turn around, you can see the light from behind you. So there's still the chance of saying, you know what, I'm going back to the light. But you're willing to walk through the darkness. And it's scary. But it's not scary per se. Darkness is not scary. It just so happens that you're so used to the stories and everything that what scares you is not the darkness, it's the stories you have in the mind that you've been taught about everybody else. But that voice says, keep walking. And you turn back to that voice. You turn back to that peace. You see where we're talking here? And you keep on walking. It comes a point when you are in the middle of a tunnel. You look back and all that is darkness because you cannot see the light of the entrance of the tunnel. And you look ahead and you see darkness because you cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel. So what do? And again, that's when the mind begins to create all sorts of stories, and this is where this question talks. Oh my God, what happened with the traumatized child and everything? And he goes crazy, and the only thing that is asked of you is just be quiet. You see? Just be quiet. And the voice said, just keep walking. And you hold on to that quietness, you see? You keep walking, you keep walking. Then, as time comes, you begin to see a reflection of light towards the end. You cannot see, but you see it's getting lighter. The tunnel is getting lighter. And that gives you the inspiration to keep on walking, you see? And finally, the light keeps getting brighter, and now all the fear starts to dissipating on their own. You see, you don't have to fix them, you have to do anything with them. They start on their own, they start dropping away, and you keep walking and walking and walking, and finally at the end of the tunnel you have the whole continent with all these different textures and colors and everything that you could not see in this little island called Manhattan, you know, which, by the way, yeah, New York is the whole state, so I should have said Manhattan. Manhattan with only all this island that is surrounded by water. Yeah, may have a park in the middle, but in reality is not compared to the mountain, the nature, the all the things that you can possibly imagine, you see? And then you can rest in that peace and this openness, you see? So that's how these videos are about. These videos are about the fact that this openness that you're so much searching is what you already are. You already are that openness, you are that peace, you are that happiness. And everything are stories, stories that pertain only to the seeming character, you see. You're not the character, you simply are. And if you rest in that, which is the only thing that needs to be done, that's what I said at the beginning of the video, it's very simple. I'm not asking you to go to the mind and try to figure anything out. I'm not asking you to go to the past or present or whatever, or future, or come up with stories or what happened. I don't know. Look, I can tell you a story if you want a story. I also have a story about my seeming past, but that's just a story that has nothing to do with the truth of what I am. I'm not saying that there's a denial here or suppressing, no, because even if feelings or something would come up, they're seen. You see, that's the difference. I'm not judging anything. I'm not suppressing anything, whatever. And if there's something that needs to come up to the surface that may seem to be appropriate to some kind of an openness or healing, it'll come up on its own. So I don't have to look for it, and I don't have to invent stories. So you see how the question was about these traumatized things and everything. All that pertains to the seeming character. You're not the character. This is all what we're pointing to. And when this recognition is in place, because you simply are, then all the questions drop. They fall away. Because what they were talking about, my childhood. Who has a childhood? You see? Who are you has no childhood. Who are you is everlasting. Who are you is ever present. You simply are. And now the mind has no room to fabricate stories. Fantasies may seem to come up, but they'll be seen, not judged. And you see, now all we're doing is being. So the only thing that is the invitation in these videos is just to be. And that's it. As life happens, as life unfolds, you're being, you rest in that beingness because you simply are. Well, this is inspiration that came through. I hope it served. And as always, may peace permeate the mind so that love can be extended.